Welcome, everybody. It's that time again. It's Monday night, and it's time to get some education so we can empower you with ways to take charge of your health. Let's jump out of the gate as we're learning about thyroid balance tonight and how to support it with adaptogenic formulas. Let's hear about how this woman took care of supporting her underactive thyroid.
Hello, little testimony for thyroid and using either the Lift or the Comfort oil. Comfort is just easy and I keep it with me all the time now. This goes clear back to when the oils came out, I implemented them right into my soul regimen. I've always been a believer in essential oils, especially for the emotional impact, but one day I was driving home from Wichita and I was so fatigued. And of course, that goes with thyroid. You've got the anxiety, depression, fatigue. It just is. I pulled out my Lift at that time and rubbed it around my thyroid and it just turned bright red. I couldn't believe it. But it was an immediate pick me up and I was good. So when Comfort came out, that's the one that's just my go to. And so when I'm feeling a little bit fatigued, just not quite my bubbly self, I will pull this out and just rub it right around this area. And I don't rub hard, but you'll watch and here in a minute, it will just turn bright red. And it's like it's starting to fire. Yes, I have nodules. I've had a lymph node removed. This is definitely part of my healing. And the other thing is this has been rearranged a couple of times with cervical fusion. So that thyroid has been knocked around some as well. So this for me is always in my bag. It's on the go with me all the time and I pull it out whenever I need it. But as you can see, I don't know how well you can see that, it does turn bright red. And I did that on purpose so that you could actually see what I'm talking about. Hope this helps somebody. Use your oils. I'm a believer that they are an impact with everything we do with our soul regimen. Thanks, guys.
And just for clarification, the way she used the Lift initially was she created her own roll-on with a few drops of the Lift with a carrier oil as well. And so Lift is one of the main ingredients. It's also in the Comfort along with some of the others. But I'm so glad she did this so you could see how that blend brings the circulation to the thyroid. And by getting that thyroid, the circulation to it and it getting activated, it really does help challenge that fatigue and memory challenges and stuff that goes with an underactive thyroid. So let's talk about thyroid. What does this look like? And keep in mind, you don't have to be diagnosed with thyroid issues to go in and support it nutritionally to help the body bring it into balance. Because remember, with adaptogenic herbs, the body is taking the nutrition and bringing it, whatever is going on, out of balance, whether it's overactive or underactive, and supporting it to where it goes where it needs to. So here are some of the typical patients that Rhoda Barnes, and this is a classic, this is a book that I've had and referred to forever, that she would see these people coming into her practice, these type of stories. And I've seen this myself. So a typical, and this would be like in a week's time, she'd see, think of that of the person or the housewife, the person who's young. They should have energy. They're feeling run down. They get tired really easy. They're sleepy much of the time, and they get really, they're really sensitive to cold weather, which, at times when people are just shocked, they're like, why are you cold? This can be a signal that there's some issues with the thyroid. This person can also have severe recurrent headaches. This can go directly with this as well. A person or a couple who's having issues with getting pregnant. And keep in mind, all these examples I'm giving you may even have these symptoms without flagging a thyroid test, because the span of numbers, the range is pretty broad, to where that they'll say that there's no issues, but you could be like 1 point outside of the range and have all the symptoms. But if you don't fall within the numbers where they're saying, oh, you have an either underactive or overactive thyroid, that you're often blown off. Well, I was taught that if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, it's probably a duck. I don't have to have a scientist tell me specifically the Latin genus name and everything to determine it's actually a duck. So I work the same way when it comes to thyroid. So another example would be a child or adult that's unusually prone to infections, in particular respiratory, but not limited to that. A person who suffers from severe rheumatic pain and a potential heart attack victim. Thyroid and the heart go hand in hand. You're going to find just like thyroid and adrenals do. A person who's in a state of severe mental depression. A middle-aged man, I like this. This is so, and this could be a woman as well too. A middle-aged person who's managed to distinguish themselves in their career by fighting all their life against their low energy reserve, but now they've gotten tired of fighting. They're convinced there's something, got to be a physical explanation for what's going on, even though it's never been found. And often these people have been told to talk to a psychiatrist, and they have, but they haven't got the benefit. Well, when we start supporting the thyroid, these issues go away for a lot of these people. Another case or presentation can be a person whose skin is abnormally rough, scaly, almost fish-like. And then, of course, this is a doctor, so there are other patients that have skin problems, including eczema, psoriasis, and acne. When I done iridology, one of the things that also shows us the thyroid issues is something called the scurf which is an indicator that they often have skin issues as well. Thyroid and skin, again, go hand in hand. And then another instance would be women with a menstrual problem, whether it's painful flow, irregular, excessive. And the doctor's answer for these type of things when it's excessive flow is just that they need to get a hysterectomy. And again, I'm telling you, every single one of these is a symptom of a thyroid that needs support. So if you can relate to any of these, I would definitely consider using some of these formulas we're going to talk about to support your thyroid. So thyroid and adaptogens. I thought it was really important for people to understand that the thyroid gets impacted by stress in a big way. And in fact, people that have thyroid issues not only do they get stressed and can have adrenal exhaustion issues, but they get overwhelmed, which can be tied to their anxiety issues. And then they can get overwhelmed because of the depression issues that can go with it. And again, not everyone has those symptoms, but a lot of people do. So one of the important things with adaptogens is that it does help the body to restore and maintain stability, otherwise nourishing the root of the system of the neuroendocrine system. And I thought this was a great way to look at the neuroendocrine system. And of course, this comes from both of these come from my favorite book, The Adaptogens in Medical Herbalism. It says, instead of overriding the innate wisdom of the neuroendocrine system, adaptogens allow the system to remain in the driver's seat. In fact, I find this analogy of driving a car useful. Adaptogens support the neuroendocrine system in shifting, braking, turning, and controlling the gas pedal to regulate speed. Otherwise, think of adaptogens supporting, and the neuroendocrine is a simple way of saying how the body interacts and controls all the different hormone levels, how you react to stress, whether, they all tie into fertility, to everything with the endocrine system, but it ties into how your nervous system interacts with it. And so there's a couple adaptogens in particular, ashwagandha and schizandra, which are inadaptable, which are also in vital, which are outstanding for helping to support the thyroid as well. And because it's not uncommon for these people to also have depression or anxiety issues as well, this is why adaptable is something that's often looked at. So let's hear how Gwen Roman used Maca to challenge her diagnosed thyroid issues.
Hi, I wanted to share my experience with taking Sol Maca XD, and in my case, with my doctor's approval, I also was able to go off of my prescription thyroid medication. So I was on thyroid medication for 18 years, and I wanted to go off of it and try a healthy, natural solution to balancing my thyroid function. So I asked my family doctor about lowering my dose or removing it entirely. And she agreed to lower it a few times, and each time I was fine, but she never really wanted to take me off of it for good. So in the meantime, I had heard about maca and that it is an herb that can help to regulate your endocrine system, and your thyroid is part of that. So I decided to start taking it every day. So I ordered Soul Maca XD, and I took 3 every morning. And in January of 2017, I went to my gynecologist and told her that I wanted to go off of my thyroid medication, and that I was taking maca for my thyroid. So she said I could go off of it. I might get my symptoms back. If I did, she would recommend putting me back on the medication, but that it would take 3 months to know what was going on in my system. So I did go off of it. I continued my maca. 3 months later, I made an appointment with an endocrinologist just to get a specialist opinion, told her my story. She fully expected that I would need more thyroid medication. So she did an ultrasound in her office and ordered a full CBC blood panel. And she was surprised, but all my levels were normal. My TSH is normal, my T4, my T3. She said, you have a functioning thyroid, it's healthy, you don't have hypothyroidism, you don't have Hashimoto's, but I want to see you back in 4 months just to be sure. So I went back 4 months later, we redid all the same tests and got all the same results. And then a little more than 2 years after that, which was just November of 2019, I had more blood work done. And again, my thyroid is perfectly healthy, functioning normally, and I still take maca every morning, and I haven't had any prescription thyroid medication since January of 2017. So for me, I was able to regulate my thyroid function using maca. I hope that helps someone.
I really appreciate Gwen sharing this testimony, because I'm not certain how many people realize how important maca is for that thyroid support. So maca comes out of Peru. It actually comes out of a couple different places and come out of China, but our maca does come out of Peru, which is where the top maca in the world does come from. The higher elevations in Peru make it a superior form of maca for adaptogenic properties and how it supports the body, because it's had to adapt to the different, to the climate. In fact, the European colonists would add maca to both their diet and their animals' diet to help restore the fertility issues that would show up once they change altitudes like that. Our soul maca does have the red, yellow, and black maca in it, so we've got a full round base in it. But why does maca work so well for the thyroid? Well, number one, it ties in, it's an adaptogen that has an affinity for the entire endocrine system. And as we just talked about the neuroendocrine system, this is tied in. So think thyroid, think down here pituitary, think hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is your master gland that regulates everything that's going on when it comes to the endocrine system. But why does it have this affinity for this area? Why is it so superior? Well, a couple of things has to do with the specific minerals and vitamins that are in this. Number one, it's got iron in it. And it's not the type of iron that's going to cause any issues like with constipation or anything. And it's so iron's important because it's going to help with energy. It's going to help with thinking. It's going to it helps with calcium. Maca, as many of you know, is outstanding for working with preventing osteoporosis, penia, and malacia issues. Then we've got magnesium. Magnesium gets burned up in stress. It's very important for being able to relax. And it also works in very important with that balance with the calcium for the assimilation, working for bone health. Phosphorus actually is really important not only for your structure, but for your ATP formation, otherwise your cellular energy. Silica is going to tie in with hair, skin, and nails, but it also has iodine. It's not like it has a massive amount of iodine. It has a nice amount, but again, because we use these in these whole forms like this, it has all the checks and balances, and iodine has an affinity for the thyroid. It's very supportive for and important for thyroid health. In fact, growing up in the Midwest, I often heard about, and there was areas in Midwest, like Indiana type area, referred it to as the goiter belt, because didn't have all the fish and things like the coastal properties do. And so and don't just think Indiana, that was kind of the place I started identifying it, but the whole Midwest. And so you would see more issues with the thyroid because we didn't have that exposure to the fresh fish. Well, maca brings that in. Zinc, we have learned over the course of the past year in particular that that's important for the immune system. Manganese, and manganese is a element that a lot of people overlook. That's really important when it comes to fertility and carrying, not only carrying your children to term, but actually having a connection with them. And they call it the mothering element. But also people that have issues with like hiatal hernias and that diaphragm's loose, it's often actually a manganese deficiency. So there's actually 31 minerals that are in this plant or in this root that we use. It's high in B1, 2, and B12, high in vitamins C and E. So all of these, along with other things, amino acids and plant sterols, all help to keep cholesterol in a healthier level. In fact, we've found people that were having better cholesterol as a result of adding the maca into the diet. And remember, the maca is also in our Excel as well. So what happens when we start to regulate and support the thyroid and also this whole endocrine system? Well, we see that PMS can often disappear. In fact, we can have, it's not uncommon for me to get a message from someone saying, I didn't even know my cycle was coming up. It just kicked in. Well, maca is known for helping to regulate and make cycles less of an issue. It also helps to regulate them so that they're running at the 28-day cycle. Menopause is outstanding for hot flashes. You will hear a lot of people get great results with using, starting to change how they're dealing with menopause with both the Violin Cinemate, but when they add Excel or Sol Maca into the mix, all of a sudden it's like magic. The issues disappear. And then fertility. There's so many maca babies out there, or Excel babies, or Sol Maca. I have a bunch of them. In fact, I think the oldest one's about 5 or 6 at this point. And then, of course, it helps to regulate libido. So maca is really great in helping the body maintain homeostasis and adapt to stress. And as we saw earlier in one of the other slides, realize that's important for helping the endocrine system to function at its optimal. And remember, stress, whether it's mental or physical, it's going to come in and affect that master gland, or also known as a hypothalamus, which is going to cause the body to react, causing the adrenal glands to stress out. This is why I like kind of this 1-2 punch and getting these both in here, the additional herbs that come in and support the thyroid, and then the maca combined with it. I find that they work outstanding together. So I asked Lydia to share a little bit about on kind of the other end and how she had dealt with issues when it came to the thyroid.
I've battled with thyroid issues for more than 20 years. At one point, I even bordered between hyper and hypo because, you don't have thyroid issues without first having hyper, right? It works excessively and then it gets exhausted. So hyper and then hypo. And so at one point, I bordered between the two. And I knew that because of the symptoms. I knew enough to know that if I had a tachycardia and all the other symptoms associated with hyper, then my thyroid was hyper. And if I was battling mood swings and weight gain, I knew I was bordering on hypo. So the symptoms identified for me what was going on. And so I would address it with herbs. And I did it for many, many, many years. The reason I say I went by symptoms was because I'm not a blood tester person. I don't go to the doctor. And I don't go get tested frequently. And in fact, I don't. The only times I've been to the doctor is through my 2 pregnancies. So I grew up this way and followed it all the way through. And through the pregnancies, then I would know how I was doing in terms of blood tests. And on my 2nd pregnancy, the doctor identified that I had thyroid issues and tried to put me on medication, which of course I knew enough to not do, so I didn't. But I knew by the symptoms that it was not getting better, that it was where it had to be, but it wasn't getting better. And I knew enough to address the adrenal glands, which are the root, one of the roots for the thyroid issue, and the thyroid. So I knew enough to try to go to the root, but it just never got better because the symptoms were always there. I got into Sol, and when I got into Sol, I thought nothing was going to change because I really didn't feel very different. I did know that I couldn't get up in the mornings. And so there I was, again, bordering on hypothyroid. And I also knew that there were symptoms that still told me I wasn't doing well. But because I was still functioning, I never thought Sol would do anything different for me. I thought it would pick up where my Western herbs had left me at. Big surprise when a year and a half, almost 2 years into Sol, I end up having to have another blood test. No, not because I got pregnant, but because we were trying to get life insurance and they had to test us. And lo and behold, my numbers for the thyroid were fine. And that's when I realized what Sol had done for me. And so I love Sol for that reason. I love so much about Sol, but that's one of the many things that it has done for me. But of course, you kind of all knew I love Sol, right?
And so I love how I'm very much like Lydia. I always knew and addressed thyroid issues for myself with Western herbs and Western plants. And I still continue to be in amazement at what the Sol formulas have done to support the thyroid. And I definitely was running a more hypothyroid, and just there's such a change. And even the ease at which I went into menopause was so unique to compared to everyone that I was around. Just, I can't say enough good things about what the adaptogenic formulas have done for me. And so now I've asked Greg to share a little bit about how we determine which of these formulas go into the balanced category. Greg, do you need me to share the screen with you?
No, I'm good, Valerie. Thank you. And thanks everybody for sharing. Man, these are so good. I just sit and learn and take notes too. I got sticky notes all over my desk. That's what I do. I put them on sticky notes. And then I share them in other classes. I hope I'm okay doing that. I probably should ask permission, huh? So yeah, Valerie asked me about a little bit of insight into how we determine a formula goes into a category. It's Sol, and particularly balance. And so we all know, and if there's anyone newer who might be listening for the first time, there are 4 categories we've tried to group Sol into to help all of us, help each of us in that really important part of intuition, where we learn about the formulas and then what the body is needing, and being able to kind of do what Valerie and Lydia said, where we're able to help ourselves, understanding a little bit about what's going on. And with these categories, balance, calm, lift, and clarify, that's our hope. So, in the case of, for instance, Maca, the Sol Maca in particular that Valerie talked about today, that's actually a red label product, which is lift, the lifting category. But the Maca blend is also in Excel, which is a yellow label or clarify. And so you have these 3 different types of macas, that same tri-maca blend, we call it, in both of those. And they're in 2 different categories. And then adaptable, which Valerie mentioned earlier, I love the fact that you taught about its impact on our endocrine system, Valerie, and neuroendocrine system, because we don't always think that with adaptable, but it's at its root. Those are the roots it's working on. I always think of Valerie's tree and the roots. And really, the only difference between a balanced product, say in products in one of the other 3 categories, red, which is lifting, blue is calming, and yellow is clarify, is a balanced product has 2 characteristics. And this is what goes through my mind as we make those final decisions in the office. It's not always easy, right? There's always overlap with these formulas, of course, because they're adaptogen centered. And these are the 2 characteristics that put them in balance to me. Does the formula have a fairly equal balance of ingredients from all categories in Sol? So some things that will balance, some things that will lift and stimulate and elevate energy and mood, and some things that will remove blockages, purify, and align, which are the words I think of with yellow. And so balance, you can always, so this is one characteristic, you can always look at a balanced formula and say, okay, I know it's got elements of all the categories, it would be in balance. And that would be a fact. We do look at that. There are sometimes products that are, they're all balanced to a degree because they're all adaptogens. But when they have from our mind and body formulated nutrition, when they've got a sort of an equal distribution of that, if that makes sense, of the various category objectives, we put them in balance. The second characteristic would be, think of how Valerie teaches Bella Health and with longevity, or core monthly base, the center of it all that we build out from, that we go out from. Though a core, say, grouping or a core program is something we should always be taking. Generally, this is something we don't deviate from. We only alter the amounts, perhaps, and maybe different times of day that we take, and we might be altering, I don't know, over time. But core is something that is daily nutrition just because it is. It's just that central. That's the other characteristic of balance. They were meant to be dailies. They were meant to be build your core, and then you're able to go out from there. And I think that's the way I would describe them. I know it's fairly basic, but not always easy to do with some. Trust me, on longevity, we went back and forth. But in the end, we centered it there because it most correctly filled those two characteristics.
Perfect. Thank you, Greg. Yeah, I just thought it might be interesting to get from the other standpoint. So put you on notice because we're going to do that for all the other categories as well. Thank you.
Awesome.
And so longevity, which is in the base root program that I worked with so many people, is something that I directly look at supporting the thyroid too. And I thought it might be good for people to see. And there's some great information showing that there's a correlation between low levels of vitamin D and some thyroid issues, and particularly with autoimmune thyroid disorders, whether it's Hashimoto's or Graves' disease. And this comes from Mary Shulman, who is a recognized top of her field when it comes to working with thyroid and thyroid-related issues. And many of you have remarked about the uniqueness of this formula and how quickly you feel results. Well, part of the reason I believe is because it's also coming in and helping to support that thyroid in such a unique fashion. There's a great study that shows that 72% of people with autoimmune thyroid disease in this particular study were actually deficient in vitamin D. And so that is a big number. And to me, it underscores one of the reasons to utilize this if you're wanting to work on a thyroid protocol. Now, I also went ahead and wanted to make certain I included this testimony in this webinar specifically on thyroid. For those of you that this may be the second time hearing this, because we did get to hear about it when we're showing how powerful these formulas address the root, even if we don't know what's going on. And as you know, this person ended up being diagnosed with Hashimoto's. And so I want to make certain we included that.
Hi there, I'm Kristen Lewinstra. Valerie asked me if I would share a little bit about my experience with Soul products. So I started on Soul products in June of 2018 or right around there. I had gone to a doctor's appointment in May and gotten blood work drawn and did not ever get my blood work results. So I just assumed everything was fine. But I still wasn't feeling myself, so I decided to reach out to Valerie and see what the Soul products could do for me. So fast forward to summer of 2020. I had been on the Soul products for about 2 years at that point. I was feeling pretty good, but still wasn't quite 100%. So I went to my primary care doctor, and when I walked in, she said, "So how are you doing with your Hashimoto's and your insulin-resistant diabetes?" "I'm sorry, my what?" And she said, "Well, your last blood work, you were diagnosed with Hashimoto's, which is thyroiditis, or autoimmune thyroiditis, and you were insulin-resistant diabetic." Okay, did not know any of that, was never given those blood work results. So she did new blood work, and 3 weeks later, I went back in. And she looked at me and she goes, "I don't know what you're doing or what you've been doing, but your insulin resistant diabetes is gone and your insulin is almost totally within the normal range. I was still a little high, but not as high as I was prior to. And she said, your Hashimoto's is still there, but hasn't gone up. She goes, unmedicated, untreated Hashimoto's for the last 2 years, your levels should be substantially higher than where they're at right now. She goes, so I don't know what you've been doing. I don't know how you've been surviving, but she goes, whatever it is, keep it up, don't change it. So in the meantime, I have added some prescription thyroid medication to try to get my levels balanced out and a medication for my Hashimoto's, but I have still been actively and religiously taking my Soul products for the last 9 months since I started this all. And I feel a million times better. I have recently added the new vitamin D and just got my new blood work results back. And my vitamin D went from a 30 to 110. Normal range is 60 to 100. They wanted me to be between 70 and 90 at 110. So I would say it's working. My sleep is better. I'm feeling better. I have nothing but good things to say about the Soul products, and they have definitely kept me alive and kicking when there was a lot of things that should have gone wrong in that 2-year period. But thanks to Valerie and thanks to the amazing Soul products, I was able to make it through and did not feel really bad at all, aside from just some, tiredness overall. So I love my Soul products. I will never give them up.
So just to show you the power of the adaptogens, not only in her Kristen's story about it, I helped to balance, and it was on its way to, it sounds like, correcting the issue. But just look at the diagnosis, autoimmune thyroiditis. So basically talking about how the immune system is attacking itself, and itis means irritation or inflammation of. Yes, I had to study Latin root words when I was in high school and all my science classes. So basically irritation, inflammation of the thyroid. So remember what our adaptogens do, right? They bring it into balance. Do you think an inflamed or irritated thyroid is balanced? No, it's going to work to change that. Do you think an immune system that's attacking itself is balanced? No, it's going to scale it back. This is the power of our adaptogenic formulas in action, guys. Whoop. And so the Bella Health program with the longevity is what I like for my foundation. It works on those roots, and we can work to develop and grow that healthy tree. So in this case, we've heard about 4 different options that people can add if they want to. And any of these are options. Picking one to start with, or maybe if you really felt like you resonated to more than one of those, that's fine. The neat thing is it gets in and helps to balance and bring that thyroid into scale. So let's remember here, we have got the Vital, which already does have some of the, lesser strength of the adaptogens that are in the adaptable or in the Vital, but it has so many other things that get in and help support the body's basis at a cellular level. We've got the Cinnamate, which is coming in working on blood sugar issues, which is going to allow your nutrition to transfer through the body better because it's also working on digestion. We've got the probiotic and the Veritazymes, which come in and help with your food uptake and help to prevent your food from becoming the enemy. And we just learned about longevity. And of course, it also supports bone health and hormonal health and so much more. We're continually finding more things that this does. And that is just really in a nutshell, it does so much more. So keeping that in mind, figuring out which direction to go to add for how to best support your thyroid and how best fits you, you're not going to go wrong. These products work outstanding. So our quote for today is, what you do every day matters more than what you do once in a while. So you can kind of look at this in different ways. But for me, I was thinking about, as a pianist myself, when I get and practice regularly, I get so much more enjoyment because I can just sit down and play whatever I want and truly enjoy it. And so I get that benefit. Well, I think the same with my health protocol. To me, it is so important that I purposely make a choice to be consistent in taking my adaptogenic formulas, because I want to be able to enjoy whatever life is throwing at me for the day, whether I'm dealing with 3 feet of snow like my oldest son just got yesterday, or if I'm dealing with a beautiful spring day, like my dad in Missouri, where he's showing us his picture of his blooming jonquils. Both of those, whatever extremes life throws at us, I want to be able to enjoy the day. And for me, being a person with past adrenal exhaustion and other people that I'm seeing what they're coming back from, adaptogens do make that difference. Next week, I'm going to be talking about adaptogens and healthy weight balancing. This to me is as critical of information to get across, just like when I talk about adaptogens and whether or not a person should step into detoxing, because there's different ways to get in and do this and to be successful and support the body in its best, attaining its best health.